Yo, what is good, people? Today I've decided to master a track that I was showing you in my previous videos about the tape recorder and about the SSL EV2 from Waves. And the goal for today is to master this track from start to finish. It's already a bit compressed, it's EQ'd. If you want to see how I did it, you can check this video right here. But essentially what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use some other things to make this track ready for streaming. Alright, so here's my session. As you can see, the track is right here. It's just mixed and it already has some processing applied from this plugin, such as compression and a little bit of EQ. I've boosted the lower frequencies with the low shelf filter, and I've boosted one of the low mid frequencies so I could get a little bit more punch from the snare. And that's really it for now. Right now, I'm going to use Izotope Ozone, which is my go-to plugin for mastering when I'm doing it in the box. It has most of the things that you would need when mastering, so I highly recommend getting Ozone if you haven't using it before. I've got Ozone 9. I know there's already like Ozone 11 or 12, probably 11. There's been added some things, but I'm still happy with the old version, and it works just fine for me. All right, so first of all, we've got nothing in here besides the equalizer and the maximizer. What's the maximizer? It's nothing else than a limiter. It's not going to pass any signal through it, but we will get to it at the end. For now, let's get rid of this. The first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to use a high pass filter. So I'm going to take out some of this really low end so it doesn't bother me when I'm playing it on some other systems, like in my car when I have a huge subwoofer and there are some frequencies that aren't even replicated here at my studio. So for this track, which is this wave funk track that I was playing in my previous videos, let's have a listen. It has a lot of those lower frequencies, and I don't want them to be muddy. I don't want them to be disturbing while listening, so I'm going to take those out. Before I start doing this, I'm going to lower the compression threshold because it's compressed super a lot from the previous video, and I don't want this to be as much compressed. And I'm also going to add some more compression, maybe in the Ozone. So let's bring this lower. Alright, so now we've got a nice amount of compression, a nice amount of color, and still enough dynamic range to work on this track. Let's start from the EQ that I mentioned before. I'm going to use this low shelf filter. I'm going to change it to high pass filter, flat high pass filter, like that. And I'm going to start moving it to the right when I'm listening to the track to see where is the border where I start like hearing the loss of bass, which I don't want, but I want to get rid of those nasty frequencies. Alright, as I could already hear, it's somewhere between 30 and 40 hertz. When it's on 30, it's got like still a lot of bass, but without any of those like super low frequencies below 30 hertz. And when it's on 40, it starts to feel a little weaker, which I don't really like. So I'm not going to use it like that. Let's leave it at 30, 32, 30. No, let's leave it on 30. I've decided I want to keep this bass in here. All right, that's the first step. The second step would be doing the same for the higher end, but it's not necessary. I just like to keep the control of where the higher frequencies stop. As you can see, I'm leaving it at 1700 Hertz because that's how a tape would sound like. A little bit less of those super high frequencies, which most of the people actually don't hear, because our hearing gets older, and that's alright. I can barely hear what's happening there. Above 1700 Hertz. Above like 1700, I can only hear a slight sizzle in my ears. I will try to reduce some of the lower mid-range right here, because it's really, really rich. A little bit too rich, in my opinion, but let's hear the difference. I definitely want to reduce this area between 100 and 300 Hertz. It's just like a slight decrease, like 0.7 dB, but it adds a lot more space, and the feeling of the whole thing is much more clear. Okay, let's try to boost something in the higher end. Maybe it will add something nice, but I don't think so, since it's already pretty much well mixed. Alright, I will leave this 1 dB boost. It's a pretty wide boost, starting at like 3K up to over 10K, 15K. So it's a little bit brighter. Let's hear it with and without the equalizer. First, I will start without the equalizer. Okay, I've decided to move this a little bit to the right, because I'm losing a little bit of the punch in the low end. Alright, I've reduced it only like 0.5 dB and nothing else. I'm leaving this equalizer alone for now. The next step could be the multiband compression, but this track has already been compressed a lot with the SSL plugin before it even hit into Ozone, so I'm not going to use multiband compression in this case, because there is no need. Remember that if you don't feel like you need to do something, don't hesitate not to use a certain tool, not to use a certain plugin, because it's not always necessary to use, for example, a multiband compressor, or it's not always necessary to use an exciter, for example, to make something a little bit brighter or more aggressive. Before we move forward, I think the snare is a little bit too loud. I'm not going to fix it in this session, so I'm going to take this bell curve right here, and I'm going to reduce the snare a little bit. Alright, and I need a little bit more punch from the low end, just a little bit. So let's get back to the solid state logic EV2, and let's just make it a little bit louder, just a little bit. Alright, as you could see, I was tweaking the low shelf frequency because I needed a little bit more of this higher punch, this like dirty kind of punch, not like super bassy kind of punch, but something above 100 hertz, and that's all right now. Getting back to the Ozone. Right now, I will use the exciter most likely, or a vintage tape. This is also a type of exciter, a type of saturator, but it resembles a regular tape machine. So it's going to have much more tape saturation. I will show it to you right now. As you could hear, as the input drive is really high, the sound gets completely destroyed. We don't like that, but we need something like lower. Like we don't need that much aggression, but we need some color. Okay, around 9 to 10 dB sounds nice. And here is the bias. It's going to change the character of the distortion that's happening. Let's have a listen. I really like to give it a little bit of negative bias when I want it to sound clear, but when I want it to sound more aggressive, I give it some more positive bias. I would like to combine those two in some way, but it's not possible, unfortunately. So I'm doing a little bit of this negative bias. And now I will add some harmonics, and maybe I will add some more low or high emphasis. Let's have a listen. As you can hear the difference, it's not super huge and it's not meant to be super huge, but it adds a little bit of this character. It boosts the bass in a nice way, not like an equalizer, but like a saturator does. So it's warmer, more forward. I can't really explain it better. The next step is going to be the dynamic equalizer. Here I will reduce some of the frequencies that may be standing out a little bit too much in a dynamic way. So a dynamic equalizer is something between an equalizer and a compressor. It's going to react accordingly to the signal that it's being fed into it. So for example, let's use it on the snare region right here. And right now I've reduced this snare region that much that it made the snare like fit perfectly. It was too loud initially. Like this is my mistake. Oh, sorry, this is my mistake. And it should be fixed in the mix basically. But I'm not sure if I don't have the project on this computer. It's on my different computer, so. I will just try to repair it right here. But this shouldn't be done like that, so please take note. Let's try to boost some of the higher end. So it's actually a Banksdale treble filter. It's similar to like a regular shelf filter, but it has a little different shape. I'm not digging into it right now. Let's just boost the higher end. Alright, and the last thing I'd like to control is this area, between 300 and 600 probably, because the pad that's in the background fills the space a little bit too much in my opinion. So let's try to fix it. was at around 300 Hertz. For now, let's try to hear the differences. So I'm going to bypass the whole plugin and I'm going to play it and turn it on. Really nice, much warmer, much clearer. Sorry, this word is just clearer, more clarity. Okay. All right, and now I would try to use the exciter, even though we've already used the vintage tape. I want to hear if it can do anything good to frequencies below like 200 Hertz. So they are more aggressive. I will use, let's stick to the triode mode. Triode is a type of vacuum tube that's been used in some mastering gear. Let's try to apply some. I don't like the triode. Let's try warm. I'm going to leave it as it is because the warm saturation in Ozone adds this like really momentary, let's say, impact. So it's a little bit drier, it has a little bit less bass, but what is left is a little bit more punchy than it was before. All right, and the last step here would be the limiter. We can use either the vintage limiter, that would sound, but I tend to use the regular maximizer that's here. First of all, the first step that I'm going to do is to put the ceiling at -1 dB. This is the requirement for Spotify, as an example. And I usually master for Spotify, so this is my main setting. And most of these streaming platforms actually use this setting, so that's all right. And then I'm going to adjust the final loudness, so the amount of compression that the maximizer, the limiter, is going to apply accordingly to the standards. And the standards are, as you can see right here, it's already set -14 LUFS. LUFS is loudness unit full scale. I'm not going to dig into the mathematics of this, but essentially we use LUFS to describe, measure the loudness that you hear, not that you see on the decibel meter. Yeah, that's how I would describe it to someone that's not into the topic. All right. The reality is, if you mix with -14 LUFS, I've learned it the hard way. I've been mastering on -14 LUFS for quite some time, and my tracks always tend to be, they used to be much, maybe not like much, but noticeably quieter than other tracks. So I usually mix at around -12, -11 LUFS for the louder parts of my mixes, of my songs. This song is pretty constant, so it doesn't have that much of a difference between the chorus and the verse, but I'm going to measure the chorus. So I'm going to type in -12, and I'm going to hit learn threshold, and I'm going to play the audio, and it will adjust automatically. Alright, let's turn it off. I'm going to turn on the meter that I have right here, and let's see if it has around -12 LUFS integrated. This thing right here. Not really. That way. Not really. It's minus 17. It's way too quiet. So as you can see, you can't really trust all these intelligent features. Let's lower the threshold a bit, a lot. Minus 14. It sounds a little bit too distorted for me. I'm going to change the mode of this limiter into IRC for modern. That's what I mostly use. And it should sound much more clear. Well, it sounds much better at minus 14 than at minus 12 or minus 11. So I'm going to leave it like that. And this is one of the examples that you shouldn't always trust the numbers. Because usually when I mix like minus 12 cloves. I know some guys that are mixing like minus 9, minus 8. This is like crazy for me, but still, it happens. Most of the electronic music is mixed like really, really loud, really hard. I mean mastered. When I say mixed, I mean. So yeah, it's quite loud. But let's hear the final difference, like without anything on Ozone. Alrighty, sounds pretty nice, and I think we are done. You should always check it like double or triple times. I mean, you should get up next day and listen to it. But the reality is, if we've been like treating all of those mixes and masters like for days and weeks, no music would be like out on the internet. So. I always try to do my best and just like let it go. I don't like to over mix, over master, over produce in general. I stick to like doing it the regular way, if you know what I mean. All right, this is how it's done. Thank you guys for watching. My name is Dominic. You've been watching wodzubeats, and keep the good vibes alive.